Good morning everyone. In this video lecture we're going to talk about bugs, debugging and exception handling. Sometimes errors occur in the program and these errors are called bugs. They are called bugs and removing them is called debugging. So first of all, let's talk about the kinds of errors appearing in a program. Three most common errors are syntax errors, logical errors and runtime errors. We'll talk about them one by one. So let's say I execute a very simple program with print function. Okay, so it shows the output on the screen, but what if I try to write it something like this? So it shows an error, right? Because this is the syntax of print function. This is the syntax of print function, right? So if I write something like that, it will show an error. Another example could be for loop. Now we know that for we have a particular syntax defined. So for I in range and all of that. So syntax error occurs when you are, let's say I run it like this, right? So basically syntax error occurs when you are not following the syntactical rules of programming. Okay, because every language has some rules defined. If you don't follow them, it does not make sense. It is not, when I don't use the proper rules, proper syntactical rules or syntax rules for this particular programming language, it is not making any sense to the compiler. Compiler doesn't know what it is, right? So for example, if I say this class programming is, that is, I mean, you can understand what I'm saying because the syntax is not right. So just like English language, all the programming languages have some syntax rules and you should follow them. If you don't follow them, it will show a syntax error. So these are the errors called syntax errors, where the syntax of statements or functions in the program, in the code, is not right. Okay. So these are syntax errors. Then we have another type of error called logical errors, and in these kind the problem is with our logic only. So let's say I want to multiply these two numbers 10 and 8 and the result is 18. Well, it should be 80, but there is also no error. So these kinds are called logical errors and you have to go check your logic for them. There is no message shown on the screen because your logic is not correct. You want the multiplication, you want the result after multiplication, but you're actually using addition operator here. So obviously syntax is right, but your logic is not right. These kind of errors are called logical errors. And then we have the last type. It's called runtime error, and runtime errors are the main focus of this video lecture. Runtime errors. Okay. First of all, they are called runtime because they're not known at compile time. Let me run a simple program. So let's say a equals to 9, b equals to 0, c equals to 3, and if I try to print, let's say a divide by c, it will give 3.0. If I try to print a divide by b, it shows an error, and the name of the error is division by 0 error, and this is an exception raised here. It's called 0 division error. Now what is happening here? This is like syntax of the code is right, our logic is right, okay, because I'm trying to divide only. But the thing is, this division is not going to work for all the situations. So these are special kind of errors, and these types of errors are not known to the compiler at compile time. Otherwise, compiler would have shown an error at the time of compilation, but only when you run the code they are known. And they are the kinds of errors that can be handled at runtime, because usually if the syntax error, in this case, in syntax error, when these errors occur, when syntax errors occur, you will be notified at compile time and you cannot proceed. You have no other choice but to resolve the error first and then run the code. So in a way, your program ends before actually running. But in case of runtime errors, you can use exception handling and handle the error at runtime and let the flow of program resume automatically after that. And one more thing to remember here is that not all exceptions are runtime errors. Some of them are even syntax errors. And if you study more on this concept, you will find the notion of checked and unchecked exceptions. I'll just write them here. We have checked and unchecked exceptions, right? This is unchecked. Okay, so I feel like I'm mixing all Java and all other programming languages here. So for this video lecture, we'll stick to 3 types of errors: syntax, logical, and runtime errors, and we'll talk about exception handling now that you have understood the types of errors in Python. So our focus is going to be runtime errors. This is what our focus is going to be now, runtime errors. So I hope you understood now what an exception is. It shows what an exception is. Basically, it shows the undesired behavior of program. Okay, when I'm trying to divide here, it works for C, right? But it is not working for B, and it suddenly shows error, and program just comes to halt. It just stops. So that is the undesired behavior of our program. This is called an exception, and this is the runtime error also. And so this is exception, and exception handling deals with structuring your program in such a way that it shows the proper behavior. So it will handle the exceptions or errors in a dignified manner. It's not like it will just run away from those errors. It will just show the error message on the screen and exit the program, leaving everything for the user to figure out. Okay, so that's what we call exception handling. So let's talk about exception handling now. A step-by-step procedure I'll tell you. First of all, so we are talking about exception handling now. Okay, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step procedure. So the very first step when you're trying to deal with exceptions is, first of all, you need to identify the code that you think could raise an exception or undesired behavior, or could cause sudden halt to the program by showing an error, or maybe not showing an error, but it will cause undesired behavior. So you have to identify the suspected code, okay, and you will write it inside your try block. So I'm introducing these exception handling terms here. We have try block. Okay, so this is the first step. So you will identify the code that could raise an exception. And the second step is, so once exception occurs in your program, you can handle it. So second step is basically exception handling. And how do we do that? For exception handling, we make use of except block. Now the spellings would be except here, but this except block actually accepts the code that is causing exception. Okay, so this will accept the code, and here we can write the desired action or statement we want to be performed or shown on the screen. So these try and except work in pairs. Whenever try causes an exception, it looks for the except block, and if there is no exception or error, except block will be skipped. Okay, so I'll give you a very simple example here only. Okay, so I'm going to have these two numbers, and user will print these two numbers, and I hope you know that input is used for runtime input from the user. So this is not hard coding. I'm not hard coding the values. I'm going to get the value from the user, and input is used for that. And since I want it to be integer, I will have to use, because usually it is string, by default it will be string, so I have to use int function here. So whatever input will be there, it will be converted to an integer. So I'll say enter a number. So this is going to be my first number, A. Okay, so I'm actually in the shell. I will make a code here. So I'll just write int. I hope you understood why I'm switching between these two windows, because this window that I was earlier using, this is shell. So whatever statement I write here, it will just show the output immediately, and I don't want that. I want to have a proper code, and then I will run it. So I'll write here input, enter a number. Okay, this is my first number, and then I'm going to have another number, B. Fine, and then I'm going to add these two numbers. Then I'll print C, and I don't want to exit from the program just like that, so I want to print some message here. So I'll say see you again. Okay, now I'll save it. If you are using this untitled text editor, you have to save your program first. So I'll just save it with first prog. Okay, then we have this run option, and I will run it. Okay, so we are back to the shell, and it is asking for a number. So I'll enter 3. Now second number should be integer again, because I have already used int function. So I'm not going to enter integer, I'm actually going to enter an alphabet. So let's say T. Okay, it shows the error invalid literal for int function with base 10, and the literal or the character that I entered is T, and this is the exception that has been raised. It's called value error. Okay, so in normal conditions, this is the error shown. Now I will show you how you can use exception handling here, and for that, first, what was the first step? So first, identify the part of the program that may cause error or exception, and in this case it would be value of either A or B if it is an alphabet, and then the operation C. So even if I enter the values and I don't do anything with those values, it will not show an error, but the moment I perform this operation, it will get to know that okay, you entered the wrong values. So these 3 statements should go in try block. So instead of using this, I will write try. So this statement will be in try block. Okay, and print C. Now if it shows a problem, we will have except block, right? So when will the exception be raised? Exception will be raised if I'm entering, the alphabet, if it is non-integer, And so if that is the case, try will try it, there will be exception, it will look for except block, and then instead of just showing those red lines on the screen, I can show some message to guide the user. You should enter an integer. Okay, and then I'm using this print statement, see you again, outside except. Fine. So the reason I'm using this outside is because if I enter integer for A and B, there will be no exception. So this statement, this block will be skipped, and it will just print the value of C and it will print see you again, right? So if I write this print statement inside except, it will be skipped at that time. So I don't want that. I want that whether there is exception or not, there should be a see you again message. So let us run this program now. Save it first and then run it. Okay. So if you can see, enter a number, I'll enter 9, and now if I enter T, this is the message. This is the message you'll see. You should enter an integer, and then it says see you again. That actually looks pretty good than just saying okay, you entered something invalid or something. Okay. So similarly, we have another program. I'll show you. I'll use this text editor only. Let's say we have, now I'm going to make a program for division by 0. So A equals to 9, B equals to 0, C equals to A divided by B, and then I'll print C. Okay. And after I print the result, I'll say see you again. Okay, so I'll run it. Right? Okay. Okay, I am not, what was the code? Alright, so if you don't save the program, it will show this window. So you should first save it, then it will run it. And as you can see, as expected, it will show an exception 0 division error. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to use these statements in try and catch block, try and except block, sorry. So A equals to 9, B equals to 0, C equals to A divided by B, print C, and except, it should say I want to print a message to guide user to don't use 0 in division. Alright, so I'll run it, I'll save it, and this is the output on the screen. It says don't use 0 in division and see you again. Now I'll also show you, let's say if I am not using 0, I use 3 here. Now since no exception will be raised, this part will be skipped and you will only see the result and see you again message. So this is the result and see you again. This is actually a very simple example, but the point is you will understand the idea of custom exceptions. When you're creating your own exceptions, it's called custom exceptions, and how you can create your own exceptions. This is the whole idea. This is what I was trying to explain here. In the next video lecture, I will show you how you can use exception class for showing built-in messages and many other tools of exception class actually. I hope you found this lecture interesting as well as informative. If you have any video suggestions on any other topic, drop them in the comments below. If you have any doubts regarding any concepts, let me know in the comments. Do like the video and share it so that others can benefit too. And if you are new to the channel, please subscribe so that you can find my future videos easily. I will see you next time. Till then, take care and thank you.